Welcome to the Cutting Edge Convention, a worldwide movement to revolutionize your life. No more stumbling around in the dark, wasting precious weeks, months, and years trying to figure it out on your own. Get ready for valuable innovations and strategies. And now, here's your host, Marcy Peters, the Age Backward Mentor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cutting Edge Convention, Innovations to Revolutionize Your Life. I'm your host, Marcy Peters, the Age Backward Mentor. I help smart, successful men and women step into a life they love and a body they love being in. Today, we're talking food cravings and how to master them. This is really, really important because everyone has experienced food cravings, and it's something that a lot of people are really struggling with. So I really want to address it today with the expert. So today I have Stephanie Dodier. I'm going to put her bio up on the screen, and let me just tell you a little bit about her as well. Stephanie Dodier is a clinical nutritionist, weight loss, and emotional eating expert. Stephanie's integrative and comprehensive approach to nutrition focuses on finding the root causes of your cravings and finding alignment in both your body and your mind. Stephanie, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am so glad you're here with us. This is a really important topic. And it's one that, so many people are struggling with, and they'd like to find a resolution once and for all and not go back and forth with it, as we all have, even
Yes.
those of us in the business. So first of all, what is a food craving? Let's just break it down. We've all experienced it, but what is actually going on there?
Absolutely. So there's food craving. I like to call it a message from our body. That's what simply it is. And it's not something that we should fight. And that's where the fitness, weight loss industry or the health industry has gone wrong in the last 30 or 40 years, is approaching it from a fear-based perspective where we need to fear, we need to fight, we need to hate on our food craving. And that is leading us where we are today, with a problem where people are completely overwhelmed by their food craving. And there's, as you all know, a major crisis in obesity because people don't understand what food craving truly is. So the way I like to explain it to people is that food craving is a message from our body, is a mean of communication between us, our soul, our spirit, and our physical body. And there's two main area of messages within food craving. One being physical messages, meaning biochemistry, hunger, physical symptom in the body. And then there's the emotional communication that our body is doing while creating that food craving. So when we approach food craving from that perspective, then we can have an opportunity to learn from them and reduce or eliminate them in the future, as opposed to us sending all that negative energy towards our food craving and starting this massive fight and hatred on our own body.
Yes, you bring up such a good point, is that we compound the situation with this negative thinking, this judgment, this criticism, feeling like we're at war with ourselves, our body's the enemy, or food's the enemy, something's the enemy, and why does anything have to be the enemy, right?
Yeah, and we're just weak, and that's how the mass media, particularly the fitness industry, likes to tell us, is that we only need more motivation, we only need more discipline, and the craving would go away and we would win the war. And particularly for women, because we are emotional being, this will just compound the craving you're having because you're not connecting with the emotion behind it.
That is so important. Yeah. So one of the messages is that it's a willpower thing, that you lack willpower or discipline, like you said. And okay, so let's talk about that. And then what you just said, which was the emotions and actually dealing with that.
Yeah, so my technique that I like to teach my patient and my followers are, the number one step is to truly understand what is physical hunger and what is emotional hunger. And that's the ground level where you need to begin your journey. So we're going to deconstruct emotional hunger so everybody can understand what it is. So there's 7 signs of emotional hunger that I like to teach. Number 1, when you are living through an emotional food craving, it is sudden. It strikes you in the back of your head, right? You're working at your computer and all of a sudden, boom, chocolate craving comes on you. I'm sure the listener have had this experience before. And then it's very specific. You crave the chocolate, the chip, the muffin, like there's one obsession in your mind. The third sign is it's urgent. And so usually you're trying to continue working, but all you can think about is the chocolate, it's the craving and how you can get it. It's either going to the pantry, going to the restaurant in the office building, and you're strategizing in your head how you can achieve to eat the food craving that is present in your body. And there's 2 options. You either fight it through motivation and through discipline, and you continue obsessing about it, or you give in and you go have that piece of chocolate. And what I want you to know and observe is your behavior when you're having that piece of chocolate. It is not mindful eating, meaning that you just eat, and by the time the chocolate bar is over, you realize you finished eating it and you don't even know what happened. Right? The whole thing's in your mouth and you have no idea what just happened. And the last sign is you feel guilty and shame. As soon as there's an emotion of guilt or shame around any food you eat, it is an emotional eating behavior or an emotional food craving. So that's the big sign that are present around emotional eating. So going from there and understanding you now know what emotional eating is, the next piece is understanding what each of those cravings mean emotionally. Because if you are experiencing an emotional craving, there's likely an emotion behind it, right? So there's a piece of work that I really like is Louise Hay. I'm sure you know who Louise Hay is. She's a fabulous author from the founder of the Hay House. And through her years of work with patients and emotional eating, she has this great tool that allows us to understand the emotion behind each food. So that guide will actually be available for all the listener at the end, and I'll have a chart in there that shows you each food and each emotion behind it. And it's crazy true. And I challenge the listener to go through this chart and look at the food and the emotion behind it, and you contact me if it's not true. I've never experienced that in the last 5 years of working with food craving. It's bang on. So I'll give you an example of that. One of the main craving that particularly women experience is chocolate, right? When I do public speaking and I ask people, like, which craving is the worst, 9 out of 10 women will raise their hand all over chocolate, and they'll start screaming and they'll start laughing because it's something that most women experience. And the emotion behind that is actually love, lack of love. That's when typically people will crave chocolate. And is why women crave it more, because they're more emotional being. Men has a different relationship to love than women. And then when a woman feels that there's not enough love in her life, that her partner does not demonstrate enough love, there's likely a chocolate craving that will come upon her. And the interesting thing about this particular one is there's actually scientific evidence behind it. There's actually research that was done about 30 years ago on why women were craving chocolate. And there's actually a molecule in your brain that was proven to be at the root cause of this chocolate craving. So and I'll break it down for you even further. In chocolate, pure cacao, I'm not talking about the chocolate commercially produced, but pure cacao, there's a molecule in there called PEA. And that molecule is also present in our brain. It's a neurotransmitter in our brain. And that PEA is a component of dopamine, and it's that neurotransmitter that promotes that feeling of love, that feeling of happiness in your brain, right? So make the equation 1 + 1. Woman does not feel loved by her partner or love at all. There's a lack of dopamine in the brain. And the brain with time has been trained that when there's a lack of dopamine, one quick way to get that dopamine up is by eating chocolate.
That makes so much sense.
Crazy, right?
Right.
when I was looking at the research, I'm like, this is what I observed clinically, but actually see the research backing it up was actually stunning. So there's a biochemical reaction in our brain that drives that emotional craving. Because let's face it, we don't need chocolate or cacao to live. It is not a nutrient deficiency that we're living through. It's actually the emotion, and it's biochemistry in our brain that shows it. Another one would be salt. And that's particularly common with men, like chips and snacks. It's actually due to a cortisol metabolism in our body where the salt is needed to balance why the men tend to crave more chips, because they're more stressed, they're provider, and they want to satisfy their dependent or their lover, and there's more stress in their life, so they tend to crave more salt and crackers and chips of that nature.
Okay, and what if the woman is craving the salty stuff?
Same thing. So for me, and as an example, in my health journey over the last 6 years, I've changed my life, but there was a time in my life where I was in the corporate world and I was working easily 100 hours a week, a lot of stress as a business person. Guess what my number one craving was?
Salty.
Chips. I could go through an entire bag of chip when I came back from work, sitting on the couch and then falling asleep, because I was actually, for people in the natural medicine world, my HPA was completely dysregulated, or adrenal fatigue, for some people may commonly be aware. I was completely crashed out. I was down to 0, so my body couldn't keep up producing cortisol, so I was craving salt consistently. So that's a relationship between emotion and craving, and looking and understanding why we're craving. And once we're empowered with the knowledge of what is behind this emotion, then begin the journey of actually healing that piece of our life.
Yes, I love this conversation because there's a lot of talk about emotional eating, and I've interviewed many people over the years and I talk about it as well. And it's not usually correlated with the biochemistry necessarily. So I really like that you're bringing it all together. Could you give us one more, and then I know the rest of them are going to be on the sheet?
Yes, absolutely. Dairy product, very common, particularly cheese, right? Cheese, and if anyone has been through working with a nutritionist or any kind of health expert or weight loss expert, one of the things they will ask you to remove from your diet, at least for a small amount of time, will be cheese. Because cheese actually hacked on your reward center in your brain. So there's, again, biochemistry in the cheese that hacked upon your reward center. So when you don't feel satisfied in your life, when you have major losses, or you don't feel that you're achieving your goal, there's a lack of stimulation in that reward center in the front part of the brain, which then the body will trigger a food craving for something that can stimulate that reward center. And very often it is cheese. If you have cheese in your life, like I do, sometimes it's very hard to eat just one piece, right? You'll eat the whole brick of cheese because you want to feel better. And it's true. It produced that chemistry in the brain that will make you more satisfied, rewarded at that time when you eat the cheese.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cheese is a big one for
yes,
as well as chocolate and the salty stuff. So
yeah,
that's so fascinating. Well, okay, so back to food cravings. Statistically, 90% of people who go on diets and lose weight don't keep it off. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so that's how we link weight loss to food craving, right? So we were talking earlier about this this weight loss industry in the last 30, 40 years. And as you said, 99% of the people end up putting back the weight on, and often more than what they lost. And what I have observed and what I believe is the truth is that we don't really address why people overeat in the first place. So many people in today's, when you look at nutrition and the health trend today, a lot of people are blaming sugar. And they're blaming insulin resistance. If you've had any weight loss expert talking, they'll probably say it's insulin resistance, it is sugar addiction, which is all true. More you consume sugar, more insulin resistant you become. But what I want you to think about is why you overate those food 10, 20, or 30 years ago that led you to have insulin resistance. I don't deny the fact that we are insulin resistant, absolutely. And one of the number one lifestyle that I teach is actually low carbohydrate diet, because 90% of my patients are insulin resistant because of 20, 30 years of overeating carbs or sugar. But not addressing the root cause of why they overate will only lead them to lose temporarily through discipline and motivation, and then go back to their emotional eating because we haven't given them any more tools to deal with their emotion.
Right.
And then the weight comes back on.
Right. The root cause has not been addressed.
Exactly. So by using this 4-step process that I have created for my patient, I'm able to help people reflect, be aware of which emotion triggers their food craving. So as they're going through their weight loss journey, they can work on addressing this root cause, this emotional layer inside of them that caused them to overeat. And that journey is not done in a week, right? This is weeks and months of work while you're losing the weight. So when you achieve your goal, you're not going to go back and put on all the weight you've lost because you're going back in your old patterns.
Okay. So I want to talk about what the process is and how did you come to figure this out in the first place?
Absolutely. Well, there's a very personal journey behind that. Like I talked about earlier, 6 years ago, for me, my life was completely different. So 6 years ago, I was an executive VP, worked 100 hours a week, and I was completely consumed in my work. And then one day I got up on stage to speak in front of my employees, and I literally collapsed on the stage. Sent to the hospital I went. 6 hours later in the emergency room, the doctor told me I didn't have a heart attack, because that's what everybody thought I had, was a heart attack, because at the time, 6 years ago, I weighed 100 pounds more than I weigh today. I smoked a pack a day. I ate only McDonald's, and I never went to the gym or did any activity, and ate chips every night. So my own health pushed me, the universe sent me in that direction of having to heal myself, and emotional eating was an intrinsic part of that journey. So through my own weight loss and gaining the weight back and then losing again, and understanding that the emotion were really behind my eating. Once I cleaned up my eating, if I didn't resolve the emotional eating, overeating healthy food, guess what's going to happen? You're going to gain weight. And that's a trap that many women are in, right? They say, I eat clean, but I still gain weight. So that journey of mine led me to this, what I call the 4-step process to eliminate your emotional eating. So I'm going to go through that to teach it to your listener, because I think it's something that we should all be taught in school, but unfortunately we don't talk about that. So the number one step when you're faced with a craving is to understand, is my craving at this point physical or emotional? So earlier I taught you the difference between the two, and all of that would be included in the guide that you're going to get for free. So once you've understood, okay, it's a physical hunger, I'm going to go eat, or if it's an emotional hunger, then I need to deal with that emotion. I need to at least understand what it is. So when we then understand that it's an emotional eating, a food craving that we're having, the number one step is to segregate ourselves. we need to step away. I call it step away from food. So if you're in the kitchen, go to the bedroom. If you're at work, close to your snack drawer, walk to the bathroom, close the door, sit on the toilet, and then put on your phone 15 minutes timer, okay, to make sure that you're not staying there for half an hour. And then close your eyes, and for 15 minutes, I am proposing to you to actually connect with yourself. Some people may call that meditation. Some people may call that breathing techniques. But for 15 minutes, you're going to breathe in and out by the nose. Now, the reason why I'm asking or suggesting that people breathe by their nose, there's actually a mechanism behind that, and it's commonly known as yogic breathing, where when you actually breathe in and out by the nose, you're activating a different part of your nervous system. And what has been identified through science is when you are in an emotional eating period or time of your life or an experience, your nervous system is in what we call the fight or flight mode, right? Hyper-arousal, hyperactivity of your nervous system, which leads you to release cortisol in your body, which leads to food craving. So one of the quick ways to step away from food craving is actually to shift your nervous system into what we call rest or digest, that calmer part of your nervous system. Quickest way of doing that is through breathing exercise. So very simply, 10, 15 minutes, or even 5 minutes, if you can't do the 15 minutes, of your eyes closed and breathing in and out through your nose will shift your nervous system from that fight or flight to rest or digest. And while you're bringing down your nervous system, your urgency of craving that is linked to that emotion will calm down, and you will be able to have an awareness to what the emotion is behind. So one example I like to give for all my busy executive, when you're at work and the craving strikes you in the back of your head out of nowhere, and you do this exercise, you are likely to find out it's the email from your boss that triggered you. Mm-hmm. Right? Or if you're at home, maybe it's the kids fighting together, right? That impatience that you have in front of the kids, or that anger that you have towards your boss, is what's sitting behind this craving. And the beauty of the emotional body, of the spiritual body in the human being, is once we're aware, all your body wanted you to be is aware that this is a trigger behind it. And then the craving will calm down.
It's asking for your attention and your consciousness.
Voila. That is why I began at the very beginning of that conversation in saying, your craving are a body message.
Yeah. I think of my metaphor is a young child, mom, 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 pulling at the
yes.
And they're going to keep doing that until you finally turn to them and say, yes, dear, what do you need? Oh, nothing.
Beautiful.
That attention.
That's all your food craving wants. So once you are in that 10 to 15 minutes period of focusing on your breath, shifting your nervous system, being aware that message, that intuitive feeling will come up to you, and now you understand what it is, the craving will likely go away. 9 times out of 10, once the beeper on your phone beeps, you no longer crave. And then people ask me, so what do you do when you still crave? Go and have it. Like, go and suit yourself so you can feel better, but at least you know what triggered you. And then the journey began in reconciling your personal life so those triggers are less present in your life. And that's what takes a longer period of time through your weight loss journey, if you're on a weight loss journey, period.
Yeah, just having awareness of what's going on behind the scenes.
Exactly.
On automatic.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow, that's beautiful. And It's so simple. What I'm finding, the longer I'm in this field and doing this work with people, is that it truly is the simple things that are the real foundational parts of health.
And you're absolutely right. When I began my journey as a nutritionist, I was like providing people with meal plan and then countings and measuring things and making nutrition a very complicated aspect of our life. And what I have found is that when I was applying nutrition in that way, people will get focused on the technicality of nutrition, completely dismissing this huge emotional component that's behind food, and then regaining or getting sick again. If we're treating a condition with a nutrition plan, then they won't get better.
They lose sight of themselves and their body and checking in with their body and what feels good and what didn't feel good. And, what would I feel right having or doing today?
Or am I really hungry, or am I eating because it's noon?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Habit and association are a big part of the whole eating situation, and especially emotional eating.
And that's a whole other tangent we can go on. But when we talk about mindful eating, this whole, again, fitness industry and weight loss industry forces people typically in the 6 meals a day template, right? And that's how I lost my first round of weight, is through eating 6 times a day. And what it did to me and what it does to people is it disconnects you with hunger. It prevents you from being hungry. And that's how I was sold into it with the person who helped me lose the weight, is that if you eat, you'll never be hungry, because we cannot trust you being hungry. Because when you're hungry, you overeat, you eat bad stuff. So we don't want you to be hungry. Enemy is hunger.
And the very idea that you can't trust yourself
is crazy
in life, to be able to trust, you're the only person that you're going to go through your entire life with, and to not be able to trust yourself. Yeah.
Crazy. So again, people go in that mode of eating 6 times a day because they can't trust themselves, but that's not sustainable, right? So when they're finished their dieting period, they go back to eating 3 times a day, and then they've never faced their hunger. They never encounter it and be friendly with it. Hunger is an enemy. And then they get hungry, and then they get revenge, right? We get revenge, and then we binge because now we're hungry, and being hungry is a bad thing, and we deprived ourselves for like those months, and then we fall back into the vicious circle because now we binge, we're a bad person, right? Yeah. So we're going to eat again. And then you get into that mode, and then 3 months later, you've gained back the 20 pounds that you've lost.
Exactly. Yeah. Deprivation is not the answer, because it's like the pendulum. It will swing the other direction. And what you want is to be in the middle and not at these crazy, extremes on the side.
And all of that because we're avoiding connecting with our emotion. So the big piece behind healing, and I always talk about health goal, because healing from weight gain, healing from emotional eating, or healing from a digestive issue is all about reconnecting to the emotion that caused the sickness, that caused the tissue dysregulation, that caused the biochemistry dysregulation in the first place. And being that we're a society of left brain, it is very difficult for people to shift to that emotional side because they're scared.
Yeah, because feelings can be painful, and they often are if there's certain feelings. And so we go our whole lives trying to avoid those feelings. And the irony is the feeling can last 30 seconds or a minute or a couple minutes. It doesn't need to be like this long suffering when you finally let yourself feel it.
Exactly. Feeling and emotion are not what drives your action. What drives your action is the decision you make from the emotion. And when you understand that emotion, as you said, lasts 30 seconds, a minute, or 2 minutes, then you can make the decision that is not based on the emotion, because you've just observed that emotion and let it wash away from you. You're not being a victim of your emotion. When you emotionally eat, you are a victim of your emotion. When you take that 10 or 15 minutes to observe your emotion, you move from the victim to a person in power and in charge of your emotion.
That is so powerful. Okay, will you say that again?
Absolutely. So when you emotionally eat, you are a victim of your emotion. You victimize yourself by overeating, making the bad food choices. When you are in that 10 or 15 minutes calm zone of the 4-step process, you actually observe the emotion, and you are now in power and in charge of your emotion, because you let it wash away and you make a different decision after that 15 minutes. Now, the beauty of all of this is that some people say, I don't have 15 minutes. Here's the thing. More you practice this, less time it will take for you to be in control and in charge of your emotion. For me at this point, I can close my eyes at my desk, do 3 deep breathing technique, and let the emotion wash away. Right? So the more you practice, the more you are aware of what the truth is behind this whole emotional eating, the easier it is to let go and let the emotion pass instead of being a victim of it.
Right. Okay, good. Okay, so will you briefly summarize those 4 steps once again for everyone?
Absolutely. So number 1, physical or emotional eating. Determine what it is. Act upon physical hunger with making good choices and nourishing yourself. Second step, segregate yourself. Walk away from the food. Set the timer 15 minutes to be in that alone space. And then the third step is to actually breathe for 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes with your nose, closing your eyes, and then feeling the emotion. And the 4th step is letting the emotion just wash away from you. And then go back to the situation that caused the emotion with a completely different perspective.
Beautiful. So powerful. Thank you. I mean, this is going to be life-changing for everyone who is here with us today. So
yeah. And that's my purpose, is after, when we say everything in your life happens for a reason, I don't know if you believe in that, but I do. I know for me, my health crisis happened for the reason for me to share that message through my journey and now my degree in nutrition, so I can back it up with science to show to people that there is an emotion behind it that can easily address at the root cause the issue that you're living through. And that's my purpose.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so is there anything that we haven't covered in this conversation that would be important to include?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I want to offer your listener is one of my online class called 8 Tips to Lead a Vibrant Life. So if somebody's sitting at home right now and they're not yet living through a healthier lifestyle and they want to begin their journey, right? So this course, it's a 1-hour workshop, is going to introduce them to the basic of a healthy nutrition, the basic of the mind-body emotional connection, and basic lifestyle element. So to help you begin this journey, if you are not anywhere close from this and you want to start somewhere, that will be included into the link that we're going to share with the listener. And then the other piece is the guide. I suggest that you print it and then you pin it on your fridge or on your desktop so you can be reminded to feel and observe your food craving in a different perspective.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to have a link to those. There's 2 free gifts for everyone, so that's amazing. So you're going to have your guide to overcoming food cravings, as well as the masterclass 8 steps to lead a vibrant life. And you said that was a 1-hour course.
Yeah, mini course.
Yeah, so that's totally doable. We can all take that hour. I want to watch it myself. Very exciting. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to share my message.
Okay, my dear. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for everyone?
Yes. Come and see me on my podcast. I have a podcast called the Beyond the Food Show, and we talk about stuff like this for 2 times a week on Thursday and on Sunday. So if you want to continue the discussion, you're welcome there.
Beautiful. Yes. So subscribe to Stephanie's podcast as well as get your free gifts, look at the website, find other information, and start your life of not being a prisoner to craving.
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much again, Stephanie, and to everyone who is here joining us today. I am so glad you're here at the Cutting Edge Convention. Have an amazing, beautiful day. I'm Marcy Peters, and I will see you again for our next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for being part of the Cutting Edge Convention. We don't want you to miss a single valuable session. To have the entire event available to you at any time, purchase the package now before the event ends. That's when the price goes up. And watch your emails to get your next steps from Marcy.